Yeah, it was a must-win in my eyes, too. Last night we were talking about Indiana.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about Michigan. Always nice to beat Michigan. You never tire of that around here.
In any sport.
Yes, absolutely. So good job, basketball Buckeyes. 61-58. They can see 500 now, Spiels. The question is, can they find the off-ramp to 500 as they play at Wisconsin on Sunday? And we don't know if they're going to have Luther Muhammad. He hurt his shoulder last night. But he was back on the bench and cheering his heart out. And I hope he was cheering for Caleb Wesson, who I've been hard on at times. But, boy, Caleb Wesson was fantastic last night.
Well, I saw your tweet, and I watched the game, and I agree with you. That was his best game, I think, as a Buckeye, effective inside and outside. Two things that stuck out to me, right? We talk about consistent scoring. Somebody has to step up. Dwayne Washington was 17 off the bench, taking it to the hole, hitting a big three.
Yep.
Kyle Young, obviously the two big free throws there.
Ooh.
At the end were huge. When a guy that's shooting 52%, I was able to nail those. But the thing I loved, every time Michigan answered, Ohio State answered. They didn't wilt. And that's, I think, what we were looking for. When you talk about toughness, obviously it was a physical basketball game. I mean, Jay Billis, who I love and is great, just wouldn't shut up about the officiating.
So that drove you crazy?
But well, as an analyst,
I saw people on Twitter. Dave Biddle from Bucknuts said, Billis, I think he was indicated that he was tired of Billis's emphasizing.
I mean, you make the
physical.
point. You made the point, and you made it numerous times. There comes a point in time where you don't have to continue to make the point. And in all fairness, I think I'm guilty of that sometimes, but usually I have somebody check me on that. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
And I think Jay just is so adamant about that feeling that he has that he can't move on. But anyway, that's beside the point. The toughness that I saw was that every time Michigan was able to do something, Ohio State was able to answer. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm looking for. And it was a great win. I don't think it was a good win. I think it was a great win, not only because of how they won, but doing it on the road against I don't know if it's not the Ohio State-Michigan football rivalry, but I assume it's still a rivalry in basketball.
Well, it is, and I agree with you. It was a game where they could have, we've talked about their lack of toughness, and they could have found reasons to bail last night. Oh, I didn't get that call, or, oh, man, but they persevered, and, they didn't have DJ Carton, they didn't have Luther Muhammad for a while. They weren't shooting well. I mean, for a while, Andre Wesson had, while Caleb had one of his best games, Andre had one of his worst games. Andre didn't really contribute much at all. Muhammad, Andre, C.J. Walker, I think were combined 0 for 9 in the first half. But Dwayne Washington made enough shots. He got cold at the end, then hit a big three off a pass from Caleb Wesson. That's why I would say that it was Caleb's best all-around game. Because defensively, Caleb wasn't in foul trouble, and man, did he win the matchup with John Teske. Yeah. Teske's 1 for 7. So great win by Ohio State. Now Wisconsin, we'll see if they can get to 500, and if they can somehow find a way to win that on Sunday, they'll be in pretty good shape, I think, in the Big Ten. Because you just want to be, you want to be a great team in the Big Ten, but they are not going to be that because they've lost too many home games. But if they get to 500 in the Big Ten, with their non-conference wins, they're going to have a decent seed in the NCAA tournament as opposed to being a 10 or an 11 or something.
Yeah, I think their ceiling's a 5.
I think that's their ceiling. Yeah, I agree.
5 to 9 somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere in there. But the way they were going, you can't ignore their non-conference wins. But I was like, they might end up in a play-in game in Dayton, which I would have 2 weeks ago. I'd have taken that, given where they were. All right, so good news on the basketball Buckeye front, but there's. Buried the lead. Happy National Signing Day, Spiels.
When is that?
Today. I was thinking about Ohio State's.
Well, I look forward to your articles. Where can I find your articles on National Signing Day? So I thought we already had this. Apparently there's 2 of them now.
si.com/college/Ohio State.
Okay. And I will look for
okay.
all the info because I know how much you enjoy covering 18-year-olds.
I'm sure they're going to be frustrated with me at SI today because I don't make a big deal out of this. And I'm going to plead that Ohio State's already had its Christmas. I don't know if when you were a young man growing up in the bungalow with your mom, dad, and Rick, if you ever, we had Christmas one year on December the 21st because all of us got new suits. December 21st was a Saturday. Mom and Dad wanted us to wear the suits to church on Sunday. So we had Christmas like way early. Christmas came early for Ohio
That's
State.
all you got was a suit?
No, we got a lot of stuff. But
That's,
well, not a lot of stuff. We got
That's
some
equal
stuff.
to getting a lump of coal.
Yeah, it's like socks and underwear.
Here.
Which I think we got socks and underwear.
Thanks for the suit. What am I supposed to do with this thing?
But Ohio State's opened its Christmas presents and has already been playing with their Christmas presents because they got 14 guys from their signing class already on campus working out. And we're going to get to meet them today, including C.J. Stroud, and Jack Miller, I guess, the two guys who will fight out for quarterback of the future, and the one of whom will most assuredly transfer out of here because that's what quarterbacks do now.
Well, I mean, it's I guess it's interesting to a point, but I don't count on any freshmen, to be honest with you, nor should anybody. I think other schools you can count on freshmen, impact players, but Ohio State, because of their depth, because of their pipeline, not only to the playoff, it seems like a pipeline. You're almost guaranteed some point in your career to be in a Big Ten championship game in a playoff, but the pipeline to the NFL. The freshmen that come in, you might have some impact or you might be a role player, but to see guys that are superstars or automatically have a huge impact on a team, I think is going to be a rarity at Ohio State moving forward. And I think Urban Meyer, for the most part, now you have maybe an outlier here or there, for the most part, eliminated that because of the great players that he continually recruit. I mean, we tout every recruiting class coming in here. This guy, this guy, this guy. We just have to have a chance. And half of them will probably be redshirted. So we won't even hear about them next year.
Yeah, maybe, although I don't know. I think now, if you get a kid who's a 4 or a 5-star, you might as well play him because he could blow up in a single season and be gone. They ran into that with pretty much with the Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, Shaun Wade was almost in that situation this year. Shaun Wade redshirted. Then when he finally got his chance to get on the field in his third year, boom, he's probably a first rounder. He's coming back. But I don't know the wisdom in redshirting guys. Years ago, they did that with Sean Springs. They redshirted Sean Springs. Sean played. Bye-bye. He's out of here. So
a lot of it, some of them might have a nick or an injury. We know that. So that's a medical red shirt. Some of it sometimes is age, too. There might be, there's probably 17-year-old kids coming in here, right?
Yeah.
And so you want to get a year of growth and maturity and working with Mickey and nutrition and everything, all the advantages Ohio State has to offers. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's exciting for some people. To me, I'll hear about these guys in year 2. I think Ohio State guys in year 2, they're major contributors. Year 3, if you're excel and if you live to your 5-star ranking, then you're probably looking at, well, maybe it's time for me. Should I come back to school after year 3 or should I continue on? So you have to be, 3 years removed from your high school class?
Correct. Yeah, I think we'll hear from a wide receiver or 2 next year just because when you lose Victor...
Garrett Wilson this year would be a guy that...
Yeah, I was trying to think. I think they're in the same kind of situation as a team this year that they were going into 2019. They got a lot of veterans back. They're really good. They've recruited well, so new guys who've been here are going to have opportunities. And last year, am I missing somebody? The freshman, you say, what freshman made an impact? Garrett Wilson. But is there anybody else? There's not really nobody else.
I don't recall. Garrett Wilson made an impact. He's a great player.
Yeah,
he's going to be a great player. Yep. He's smooth. He's showed tremendous maturity, great hands, poise, all the things you want in a wide receiver. Field awareness, route running ability, all that stuff. But by that nature of that position, because Ohio State will play 6 to 7 wide receivers in the football game, receivers are going to get more of an opportunity to be able to make a stand and make their name known as a freshman, as opposed to an offensive lineman where you want to pretty much keep those same 5 guys in there. You might get a young defensive lineman that'll give you 10 to 12 plays a game. Yeah. But other than that...
Zach Harrison last year is a good example.
Yeah.
He's a really good player coming in, freshman. Made some plays. But he's a backup guy. Got to pick your spots.
What a luxury it is to have Zach Harrison as a backup guy. I mean, just think of every other school where Zach Harrison would have been a starter. That's what I admire kids nowadays, too, when they choose to come to Ohio State. Knowing that you've been a star your whole life, knowing that you've never missed a down, coming in pretty much probably saying, hey, I'm not going to be playing much. I mean, that's a lot to take for a young guy. And so I admire these kids. They're willing to be patient and put their time in, that when they get their opportunities, they usually shine. But like we said, I mean, it's the nature of the position too. I mean, obviously a defensive lineman where there's rotational positions, mainly receiver and defensive line. The biggest question I have for Ohio State football next year is that I think Master Teague is a B. I think he is
A,
not
B, C, D,
yeah,
F.
He's
a B.
He's a B.
Okay.
I don't know who's the A. J.K. Dobbins was an A. Okay? I don't know who. They need an A. I haven't seen the A. I don't know if the A's on campus. Now, I'm not disparaging Master Teague. I think has a nice role. I think he's a 10 to 15 carry a game guy. Or if you get in a ground, or if he gets on a little bit of roll, that's fine. But I don't see the J.K. Dobbins, Zeke Elliott, that type of running back. Now, maybe he's in the building. I don't know. But that's what I'm looking to find out. Is there going to be somebody that's a running back at Ohio State that is a little bit different than Master Teague? We know what Master Teague is. He's a bruiser, right? Is he J.K. Dobbins? No. He's not even close to J.K. Dobbins. What are you smiling about?
I'm smiling because in my Wayback Machine, I think you'll agree with this, we would have said exactly the same thing about Eddie George after his sophomore year. I think Eddie George is a B. He's a goal line power back. Don't think he can be a home. Coop used to complain about Eddie going into his junior year. He doesn't hit enough home runs. Doesn't take it the distance.
Yeah.
And Eddie became that. So I don't think there's anybody who's going to get ahead of Master Teague on the depth chart. And I'm not as willing as you are to say that he can't become elite.
I didn't say he can't become
okay.
that.
I thought that was kind of the vibe I got.
I'm going on the information that I have right now.
That's all we have.
Yeah, that's if true.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. CNN.
If true,
yes. All networks really.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, but I'm just telling by the style of how he runs, to be able to make people miss in space, the breakaway speed. I think he has some very good characteristics, and I just don't know. There's got to be somebody else besides Master Teague. That's
a spot where there's room for a freshman. No doubt. That's running back.
Or somebody that's already in the building.
Yeah, Demario McCall or whoever else.
Well, we don't know who's. I mean, giant gains can be made in the offseason and spring ball and practices where all of a sudden a light goes on for a guy, and he develops and grows into that position and takes advantage of his opportunities. That's the position that I am waiting to see.
They have really talented wideouts. Brian Hartline's crushed it in recruiting. He's crushed it in coaching. I expect soon to hear about a raise for Ryan Day. I expect Brian Hartline's in the middle.
You mean Ryan Day to give Brian Hartline a raise, or Ryan Day
I mean
to get
Ryan
a raise?
Day to Ryan Day to get a raise. But I also Hartline's in the middle of his contract. He has a 2-year deal. Mm-hmm. He's fulfilled 1 year. He or Matt Barnes jockey back and forth for the lowest paid guy on the staff. Hartline, look, he's not leaving because this is just. I could see Brian Hartline being here 20 years. I think the career track for Brian Hartline is eventually he's going to move up to offensive coordinator, assistant head coach. All that's down the road, years and years and years away. But Hartline, I think he merits a raise. He just does. I mean, he's way down below. You got guys like Alford and Alford, I think, makes $800,000, and Tony Alford does a great job. I'm not saying he's not worth that. Greg Madison makes $1.1 million. We'll find out soon probably what Kerry Combs is going to make as defensive coordinator. Hartline's under $400,000.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's experience, right? In the only, like in anything, and you and I have experienced this in radio. I've experienced this in TV, and you've experienced it in your writing career, and I've experienced it in the NFL. You only make money if you have leverage. I don't know what if Brian has leverage now. If Luke Fickell takes the Michigan State job, maybe Brian has leverage.
That's an interesting little twist I hadn't thought of as we were going to transition into the Dantonio
conversation.
I see
you have your go green, go white shirt on.
I wore my green. I even
Coach
have green.
Dino.
I even have green on underneath it because
Dino.
it's the only green stuff I own. But I just feel a little. sad today because when you lose a guy who brings such boundless joy and outward effervescence from the Big Ten Conference like Mark Dantonio does, a guy with a thundering laugh and an awesome sense of humor and a radiant smile. When you lose a guy like that, a little light goes out of the Big Ten. No, Dino's a good coach. He's a good guy. But, man, I wished he would have enjoyed or at least displayed more joy because he shares the same faith we do. I wished he would have displayed more joy in doing what he did. He looked miserable a lot of the time, and he looked miserable and tired last night. He made a right decision. He just made it 2 months too late.
Well, he also got a $4.3 million bonus.
Yes, he did.
So
January the 15th.
I think he made it exactly on time, to be honest with you.
Well, 2 weeks ago would have been better than last night. The night before signing day. Why did he do it last night? Why didn't he do it tomorrow?
I think it's very personal. I can't answer that question. I know that when you define yourself as a football coach for your entire adult life, that you don't come to that decision easily. I think there's a point where you ask yourself, do I still want to keep doing this? Then you try to talk there's a point, I believe, where you try to talk yourself into keep doing it.
Yeah, he did after the season. He said, I'm coming back next year.
Then, things add up. Obviously, there's some issues at Michigan State. There were that sexual scandal issue up there in the dormitory. There was a problem with a coach. There were recruiting violations.
There's a lawsuit right now that alleges, and the lawsuit came out yesterday, or at least some of the...
I read the whole lawsuit, I read the whole article in Detroit News.
Some of the discovery on the lawsuit, at least the media became aware yesterday of the allegations in the lawsuit, and it alleges that Mark Dantonio committed NCAA violations at Michigan State with this one kid who was trouble, but too much talent to ignore his baggage.
Yeah, he took a shot on a guy.
Yeah.
I mean...
And they do that a lot at Michigan State.
Well, you know what?
One of the benefits of that job is you can get guys in there that some schools can't get in.
But just a lot of schools do that a lot.
Yeah, they do.
Guys.
No doubt.
You have to. And I'm actually a proponent of that. I think you have to pick and choose
You got to guess
the
right.
number. And you better have a program in place. And it's almost, for me, I don't know if you're allowed to do this or what's within the NCAA rules. When you take a shot on a guy, and if you read about that kid's record, he's had issues since he's been 11 years old, or if I remember that correctly out of the article. Well, I don't want to speak out of turn, so
yeah,
that's just what I recall. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't mean to be. He's just had issues before he got to Michigan State. More than one issue before he got to Michigan State.
Right.
That's accurate. So when you better have a plan in place, almost like a probation. You got one shot. Any screw up, you're done. And I think that's under the guys, that's how I would take a guy and give him a second opportunity or offer opportunities, because believe it or not, I mean, I am a believer in giving opportunities because I know some of the backgrounds and some of the social circumstances that surround these kids. And that if you can give them an opportunity, you can help them get out of that a circle of misfortune or circle of difficult circumstances and give them a chance to excel. Now, whether they take it or not, that's ultimately going to be up to them. And the other issue was with that coach that was fired. There was a recruiting violation where that coach said he went in and sat with the recruit. He wasn't allowed to visit off campus. Dantonio said he actually sat in a car while Dantonio went in. It's all petty. I mean, that part of it's petty to me. It's just ridiculous, some of the NCAA rules. Nevertheless, they're the rules. You have to follow the rules. I think there is such a thing as burnout. I think if anybody is a picture of burnout, and I don't know what he feels internally, but externally, the picture of burnout is Coach Dantonio. Now, I would like to say this. I've had issues with Coach Dantonio over the years. I've actually had an argument with him. I've actually done favors for him. I've actually have a good relationship with him. I have a lot of respect for that man, a ton of respect. I know that his players, his ex-players, have a ton of respect for him. They love the guy, and he gave everything he had to Michigan State. Yeah. And he has no more to give. And like I said, at least from the perspective that from the press conference externally, he's done, right? You can't keep doing this. And you can see the wear and tear that it takes on a human being. Look no further than when Urban Meyer was at Florida, and a burnout that Urban had. It just consumes you. And I think it got to the point where, and I tell my brother this, I told myself this, I told Urban Meyer this, I would tell Mark Dantonio, you can't ever let it get to a point where the consumption of the job controls you. Everything about your life is controlled by the job and every circumstance of the job, winning and losing, players making good decisions, players making bad decisions. When your life is determined and your life journey and your happiness is determined by the job, then it's time to go. It's time to leave and find something else to do.
Yeah, and that's true of every profession.
Exactly.
So, indisputably, Mark Dantonio is an outstanding defensive football coach and did a great job at Michigan State. He's the all-time leading coach, in victories at Michigan State. 3 Big Ten titles at Michigan State in 13 years.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
And he owned Michigan for a long time.
Yeah, he did. He owned the rivalry.
He was very competitive against Ohio State.
He gave Urban more trouble than anyone in the Big Ten. That's not to say he dominated Urban. He was 2-5. I would argue the 2 wins quite likely cost Ohio State at least 1 and maybe 2 national championships.
Yeah.
The win in the 2013 Big Ten championship game when Michigan State was in the Legends and Leaders era, was in the other half of the conference. Ohio State wins that game. It's the final year of the BCS era. They're number 2 in the country going into that game. They're playing in the national championship game against Notre Dame in Monte Teo.
The thing I want to say about Mark Dantonio is I have one thing to say. Congratulations. It's time, and I'm happy for actually his. I don't know if he has a son. I know he has daughters.
Yeah.
His wife and his daughters. I'm happy for them because I do think. I mean, this was a guy that had a heart attack. Now, you can say it was coaching or not coaching, but certainly the stress of coaching is not good for the heart, right? I mean, we can agree with that. So I'm happy that he is retiring. I hope he steps back. I hope he enjoys life and look back. And I think, whatever, every coach has issues, right? The great Lou Holtz had an issue at every university he was at. Correct? At Arkansas, at South Carolina, at Notre Dame, he even had issues.
Oh yeah.
And so, when you're in that profession, you're going to have a lot of good things happen to you, and there are going to be bad things going to happen to you. And that no different for Mark Dantonio, no different than Urban Meyer. But this, I think Mark gave his all. I think he was great for Michigan State. I think it was the absolute right move to step away. And it's time for Michigan State to move on. And well done, Coach Dino. Well done. Congratulations.
His other win, of course, over Ohio State was 2015. That Buckeye team that was the defending national champions started the year unanimous number 1, first time ever. Struggled with the jockeying of Cardale and J.T. Barrett. Final regular season game at home, next to last game of the regular season, senior day. Dantonio comes in, and even with Connor Cook, his quarterback, injured, wins with a backup quarterback on the walk-off field goal. So that one, I think that team, had it got into the playoff, would have won the title. So think of that urban legacy if he had 3 national titles. So, and then he lost to him twice by scores of 17-16. So 5 of the losses, 2 of them were 17-16 losses. So, great job on the field. Now, here's Mark Dantonio yesterday when asked about the curious timing of his resignation and the difficulty it puts Michigan State in, if in fact it does, in attracting an outstanding successor. Yeah, there sure are. With the lawsuit and possible NCAA investigation, that was kind of a, that's a sunshine and balloons answer, because there's difficulty. I mean, who wants to take that job now? What kind of assistant coaches can you get? The 2 names that come up most prominently, Pat Narduzzi, longtime Mark Dantonio defensive coordinator who's at Pitt. But the main name, and the name that I gather from looking at the media reports and everything, the name that will excite people is Luke Fickell.
Yeah, and don't forget, another exciting figure to interview is Pat Shurmur.
Yes, Pat Shurmur, and I don't think I live well enough to get Pat Shurmur up there, because I would be loving the fact that we get Pat in a position where I could occasionally pay attention to what Pat has to say.
Well, you know, Pat's
Shurmur, pearls of wisdom. Former Michigan State QB Pat Shurmur.
Actually center.
But, was he a center?
Yes.
Okay.
But don't ever let accuracy get away from a good story.
I should have looked that up on Twitter. I should have. Sorry, Pat.
He was an excellent football player, and I think is a really good coach. I know you don't like him.
No, I like him. I think
he's a really
funny.
good offensive coordinator.
Replacing Mark Dantonio with Pat Shurmur would be like replacing Eeyore with Droopy.
So you're saying there's not much of a difference. I don't think Luke Fickell's in the bag. I don't think Narduzzi's in the bag.
So lock lead pipe cinches to want it or take it if offered? You don't think that's
I think they'd have to educate themselves and try to get a feeling. And when Mark Dantonio is defending his actions and defending his program, he's doing exactly what I would do if I were in his position, right? And promoting what he has done in 13 years, and also saying what's coming as far as facilities. Now, you know, a lot of his. I was reading this article in the New Detroit News yesterday that a lot of his attorneys say these lawsuits, everything is bogus about all this. It's all trash. Well, I mean,
that's what they say. Of course, that's what they're going to say. They're his attorneys.
Yeah. Well, that's their version of it, and that's his version of it, and that very well may be his truth. But if I'm a guy that's up for that job, I'd have to educate myself on the situation. Then I'd have to make a decision. I mean, Luke has it pretty good at Cincinnati.
Luke has recruited better than anybody in the AAC. He's won 11 games in back-to-back seasons, and he's a smart guy, and he knows he can be selective because he knows Cincinnati's not going in the dumper unless they have an amazing number of injuries and bad luck. He's going to have opportunities after the 2020 season and on and on and on.
But he's making good money at Cincinnati.
Really good.
And here's the thing. In the American, he can compete for a championship every year, and that's good enough for Cincinnati. Yeah. At Michigan State, you're expected to compete for Big Ten championships every year, in my opinion.
Every year?
I think Mark Dantonio raised that standard a little bit.
I think if you win a Big Ten championship there every
4 years,
I was going to say 5 to 7.
Okay.
Because if you're good enough to win it every 5 to 7, you're good enough to be in the mix somewhere else in that time. It's above Iowa, where Iowa's a program where you cycle and like every 5 years you take your shot at Iowa.
It's above Iowa and slightly below Wisconsin.
No, well, because of the division it's in, it's slightly below Wisconsin. If Michigan State was in the West, they could win it.
I mean, I think Michigan
3 out of
State,
every 5 years.
What's the difference between Michigan State and Penn State? And
that's the thing too. I agree with you on that. A lot of people say, "Oh, you don't want that job because you're in the same division with Michigan and Penn State and Ohio State." No, you're in the same division with Ohio State. That's the difference.
Exactly.
Is that the other two, there's no reason why you can't be better than those other two.
That's why I'm saying every 4 or 5 years you got to be able to get Ohio State.
Yeah,
and Mark Dantonio was able to do that.
He was able to do that.
Or at least scare the heck out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
And that's what you'd have to do and compete with. You're right. Like if
there's no reason the other two could.
I think the reason I would hire Luke. Now I don't know. I mean, I follow Cincinnati because it's in the state of Ohio. I really like Pat Narduzzi. I've liked Pat Narduzzi, and I've known Pat Narduzzi a very long time. I used to watch Pat Narduzzi's dad's Sunday morning football show, Youngstown State Penguin Highlights, with Bill Narduzzi, who his father was a head coach at Youngstown State. Pat's as genuine. I don't know if you know Pat.
I don't.
He's about as genuine as they get. He and Luke are basically the same guy. I don't know how Pat recruits. I know how Luke recruits, and I know what I know Luke very well, and I think Luke would be my number one target. And I'm not saying that because he's my friend.